We are on air. Good evening. This is Big Bill, and this is Who's Big Bill Talking to on Model Railroading, the number one model railroading show in the world. Number one railroading show in the world. Today is September 16th, 2020, and I'm talking to a good friend of ours, Joe Atkinson. But first, we have to do the ordinary pay the bills kind of deal. Guys, let you guys know that this evening, September 19th, we're continuing in the oh, look at this. I hate that. I'm using my wife's phone. We're continuing with the layout, big opportunities. Tommy K and John 2618, this Saturday evening, September 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll do that. And let me see something. Why aren't we? I'm not streaming. Oh, here we go. I am now. I got it. Don't worry. Take it easy. Take it easy. Michael Lambertino, Tom Holloman, Cross Anchors Railroad, Brian and Mark. How are you tonight? A heads up here. Going forward, Saturday, the 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be having small layout, big opportunities with Tom Klamowski and John Farrington. Be talking about what will they be talking about? Designing a small layout covering some factors as keep it simple, selecting a prototype railroad or freelancing, industries, layout construction methods, track and lay, track versus manufacture, layout, electrical stuff. So that's going to be pretty interesting. I like this series with Tom and Joe. And on Thursday of September 24th, we're going to have Johnny's Talk Show will be back on air. That's September 24th. So mark that in your calendar as well. That's also is going to be shown at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's the show where you guys can come in the community if you have a camera, good internet, hook up. You can do the same thing that we're doing here. You can get in, you can stuff, bring and brag if you so desire, and about model railroading, be a part of the discussion, hang out. And if you're having any problems, any kind of situation on your model railroading, you can certainly Shirley's. Don't call me Shirley. Okay, there we go. I talk to myself once in a while, and my alter ego is over here. So anyway, yeah, you guys can come on and be on the John Train Talk Show just as we're here, and really be interesting to have you guys on if you so desire. And you can talk about model railroading, anything that's going on in your model railroading, anything that's happening different. You just want to discuss it. It's all good to do. So that's this. That's Thursday, September 24th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And without further ado, let me just say hello to everyone. Stefan, hi everybody. Good evening from Germany. Welcome aboard, Stefan Edge. Welcome aboard. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Minnesota E&E Railroad. Hello. Rock and Roll Railroad. MacArthur here. I made it. Yes, you did. Congratulations. Tom O'Connell. Hi, guys. We said hello. Tom Holly. Hello. Mike Lambertini. Very well. Well, welcome aboard, guys. Welcome aboard. Here at Model Railroading, and we're talking to have the distinct pleasure of talking to Joe Atkinson. Joe, how are you? And welcome aboard.
I'm doing very well. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh, it was our pleasure.
Great to be here.
It was our pleasure. It was our pleasure. You come, my good friend Tom. He said, "You got to get Joe Atkinson on. Great."
Tom is very kind. He's being very kind. He's a good guy.
And stuff like that. So, Joe, you're doing the Iowa interstate subdivision. Is that correct? That's what you model?
Yeah, I model the far west end of the Iowa interstate, what they call the the fourth subdivision, and so just about the last 45 miles of the railroad before it reaches the Omaha Council Bluffs area.
Oh, okay, okay. And it's an HO scale layout?
That's correct, yeah.
And
Yeah.
how did you? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's
yeah, it's HO. It's the basement is about 33 feet square, and the layout occupies. It's an old house, so it's a little kind of a weird setup, but it's kind of in opposite corners of the basement, diagonal from one another, and with staging and the far west end of the railroad in one room, and the rest of it in another. But definitely not a layout friendly home by any means, but we made it work. So
when you were shopping for a home, was that a consideration, the basement, or it was we just need a house?
Yeah, I was just happy to have a basement, and so I wasn't too picky about the fact that it was split up in the way it was. It's the house is 115 years old, so it's well before the time that we had these nice, clean, wide open basements, and we got in here and had to do quite a bit of work to it to make it fit for a layout, but got through it, and here we are 25 years later. So
time flies.
Yeah.
Ralph Renzetti says, ladies and gents, howdy. Oh, and here's a special message from Scott Thornton. He says, Joey, thanks for letting me know you were talking to Big Bill. Not.
Hey,
we
Scott.
were friends. I thought we were friends. Tommy K. He says, everybody. John 22618 is in the house also. Steve 87 PSAP. Hey, I made one of these finally. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Yeah. Great to have you all here.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna pull up your. You don't mind if I pull up your early in the game here? We keep it on, but your plan. Oh, where is it?
I don't know.
Let me see. I just had it. Where was it? Modern technology. So, Joe, while I'm looking for this, how did you? It's interesting how you got started in the hobby. How that it wasn't through mom and dad. You kind of like tell us a little bit about how that happened for you.
I grew up maybe a half mile from where we live now, and as a kid, I had a newspaper delivery route that took me by the local BN yard, and very close to where the BN crossed Rock Island and Milwaukee in Council Bluffs, and so I used to stop. That was kind of the halfway point on my newspaper route, and I'd stop down there and grab a Coke and walk down and just stand at this crossing and watch the BN switcher work the yard, and just really developed a fascination with the machinery and the symmetry of everything, just the way, I don't know, there's just something about railroading, about every car kind of following the same path, and just really fascinated my 9-year-old mind at the time. And there was the BN had a tower there at that crossing with the Rock Island Milwaukee called Grow Tower, and it took me forever to get my nerve up, but I eventually started going up in the tower and trying to get the tower operator to subscribe to the newspaper, so I'd have a reason to go back there every day. And I never did do it. If I was a little smarter back then, I would have just given him the newspaper and paid for the subscription myself, just so I'd get back there. But it was a lot of fun.
Well, I have can you see your layout is up?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I understand how you're saying how it's catty corner to each other, but this is still this is still a big layout. How it says here it's the 33 by 33.
Yeah, it's honestly, I think I'm kind of in the same boat as Scott and Tom and some of these other smaller layout guys, because I feel like I'm a small layout guy with a bigger layout in the basement that just sort of grew out of some misguided notions early on in the hobby. I originally, when I got started modeling the Iowa Interstate, I was of this mindset that you really, if you were going to be into operations, you really had to be able to support tons of operators and you know, a couple dozen trains per session and that kind of thing. And so I sort of built the layout to accommodate that. At that time, it was set back in the late '90s when the Iowa Interstate was hosting. Well, there were days they had like 8 UP detours at the time. Then that UP was, they just acquired the Chicago and Northwestern, and they were rebuilding the second main line across Iowa on the CNW. And as a result, they started detouring trains over the Iowa Interstate very frequently on a daily basis. And so that was kind of the period I originally gravitated toward, thinking I needed that level of traffic to really be able to
Yeah.
operate, to have people over.
Now,
And the
no, go
more I
ahead.
got into it, sorry?
No. I'm listening. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, no worries. The more I got into it, I just realized that that I really enjoyed operations the most when there were few enough people here that I actually had a chance to interact with the folks who had you know, spent the time to come over. So I started moving more toward a later era when the Iowa Interstate wasn't quite as busy. And so what I ended up eventually landing on was May 2005, when they had there was one day they had a few detours, so we can still ramp up those if the need dictates. But for the most part, we're talking about a layout that supports a single train coming out of staging, circling the basement kind of clockwise in this on this layout plan, and then terminating at Bluff's Yard there, and just below the title there.
Right here.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Now, just so our audience, because Mike Lambertini wants to know. Where is it, Mike? Explain. He wants to know if your bench work, is it a cookie cutter? Is it a cookie cutter with foam?
It's kind of a mix. I started off where the real track dense areas. I started doing homabed on plywood, and because I wanted to, I knew from the beginning I wanted to hand lay, and so I kind of thought that homabed was kind of my only choice. And then before I got too far into it, a good friend of mine who worked here in the Omaha area, UP headquarters, Jeff Otto, came over and started teaching me about hand laying. And with Jeff, it's kind of a package deal. He had some great ideas on hand laying. He taught me about homosote splines and a number of other things related to layout construction that I had adopted following that time. And so aside from those really track dense areas like Bluffs Yard and Atlantic, the rural areas of the layout are all homosote spline.
Right. Tom O'Connell says, between the three of you Iowa Interstate guys, not sure which one of you is more inspirational. always something new and detailed. The Hills line, none of it would have happened without Joe's guidance and inspiration. Uh, let's see here. Rick Sutton says, I always wanted to see Joe's layout digging the virtual road trip. John Arthur is aboard. Hey, guys, good evening. Michael Lambertini would like also to know what type of road, well, we've already said that, yeah, the thing and code of track do you use? But before we get to that question, I'm looking at your track plan here, and I'm noticing you really do have two major yards. You have the east staging, and then the Bluffs yard, but then you have the two smaller ones, UP South, and then the down at Atlantic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've always been a big fan of yards, but I didn't really intend for for the layout to, I didn't go after this prototype because of the number of yards here. It just kind of worked out that way. I feel like I kind of stumbled across this prototype sometimes, and I just something that's been really important to me in designing and building the layout was always to come as close as I could to matching the prototype's track schematic, track for track.
Right.
And just because I live like 5 minutes from Bluffs Yard, and used to spend a lot of time down there. Like I was down there at least once a day, and because I was there so frequently, I started getting so familiar with their operations and how they would work certain industries and how they would build trains and what tracks they would use, that I didn't feel like I could really accurately model it without doing everything I could to model that schematic as closely as I could. So that's kind of where the yards grew out of. That if it was there, I did my best to model it. I think the one area where I fell short was in Bluffs Yard itself. That scene is so would be so deep if I modeled every yard track, that I ended up trimming one yard track and one of two rip tracks, and just to keep the scene depth from being so great that I couldn't reach the back of it. So
Yeah,
that was kind of where it came from.
the next question was on your layout on uh, the big where it crosses over up onto the top there. Is that blocked? Is that hidden staging, or can you see that from the layout? I mean, from the aisle. Or is it?
That the staging yard is kind of partially hidden. It's it's got a view block. The fascia rises in front of it. I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 inches above track height. So if I'm standing in the main layout room looking in there, I can't see staging. But if I'm up against staging, I can reach in fine and easily restage and clean track or whatever.
Right.
But
As we stated earlier, it's an HO. It's HO scale, right?
right, yeah.
And what is the time? What is the era that you model? You model a specific month and year, right?
Yeah. I modeled May 2005. It was kind of I kind of settled on that date when it was a time when the Iowa Interstate was starting to acquire a lot of rebuilt power, starting to standardize on GP38-2s and SD38-2s, and really liked those locomotives. But I also liked the variety of having the older power that they got their start with, the old Paducah rebuilds and MLW M14Rs from Providence and Worcester, and they had a couple high hood, a GP9 and a GP7 left at just prior to that time. That the 9, I think, is the only high hood Jeep that made it through to that May. But yeah, I just really like the conditioned, freshly repainted Jeeps that just came on board, and also I like that it allows me to operate, what was then brand new UP power, the latest GEs and EMDs, and again, I feel like it for me it makes kind of an interesting comparison next to the rusty old Iowa Interstate stuff. So.
Well, that's good. Eric Hall, IMRRO.com says, homemade deep fried chicken and Big Bill playing in the dining room. What a great way to start the evening. John Arthur asks, how many operators do you usually have at a time, and what system do you use for operations? Apologies if already said I got in late. No, absolutely good.
Yeah, operating sessions are typically two-man crews, one on the Bluffs Yard job, and one acting as kind of an extra road crew that brings the road train in from staging, brings it around the layout from staging west to Council Bluffs, and then works a local that flips out of Council Bluffs. Goes back out and works the elevators at Hancock and Atlantic, and so typically, it's I only have 5 customers, I think 4 or 5 for each of those jobs to work, but it's amazing how it can fill a 2.5 hour operating session. So.
And what do you
as far as the operating system, I use Lens DCC. That was kind of the thing in this area when I first got started. Like mid '90s, I think Lens was really popular here, and I'm still on my very first Lens system. It's just been bulletproof for me, and in the last few years, I've had the pleasure of adding proto throttles. I know you talked with Tom Glumoski about those, and I'm a big fan of those as well.
We actually had Scott Thornton on this show talking exactly.
He's the man.
He is. He is the man.
Mr. Proto Throttle.
Mike Lambertino wants to know, what kind of track do you use? What kind of code? What code? Where are we? What code track do you use? Before we get that, Randall Ellis says, I happen to have an Iowa Interstate ES44AC made by Walters. Not super detailed model, but a very solid running locomotive. And Minnesota E Railroad is, Iowa State is 35 or 80? Interstate.
80 east-west, Interstate 80 is the one that sort of somewhat parallels the Iowa Interstate, and 35 is the one that goes north-south through the state. But it's always been a bit of a mystery. I've heard different stories about where the interstate and Iowa Interstate came from. Some have said that it was because it paralleled Interstate 80, and others have said just because it spans Iowa and Illinois. So I tend to lean toward thinking it might be the former, but your guess is as good as mine. So.
Mike Lambertini, we already discussed at DC. He wants to know what code track do you use?
It's a mix of microengineering code 83 and 55 on some of the smaller elevator spurs, and I like to model some of the abandoned spurs and yard tracks that were, like Atlantic had a few yard tracks that were kind of low maintenance situations and weed grown and barely able to see use, and I kind of have fun with modeling some of that stuff with the lighter rail.
And also you are a prototypical modeler, am I correct?
I try to be. There's
nothing wrong with it. It's people I talk to, it's the flip of the coin. You know, some guys are like into letting the trains run, which is a cool thing to do,
Sure.
and some guys are into prototypical to the 11th degree. And I think I fall in that category of prototypical, but not so stringent, not so strict, but at a certain point where it has to run correctly.
I'd say that I a friend of mine gives me grief about a friend Andy Brown likes to tease me about my what I've taken to calling my hyperactive prototype conscience. I tend to find that for whatever reason, I really like the structure around strict prototype modeling. I feel like it helps me to kind of focus. For example, I've got because I lived so close to the prototype and was able to visit on a regular basis and everything. I've got a complete list of all the car movements for that month that I model, and
Right.
that is my shopping list for any rolling stock that I buy, any locomotives, everything. I've tried to stick to that pretty much exclusively, and to me that is just that's just more fun. I've had times when I've given into temptations and gone down the path of wanting to create what if Iowa Interstate locomotives and thinking that would be a lot of fun to have that additional variety. And I'd finish them, and they'd sit there. It was never any fun because I didn't see them operate on the prototype, and so it sort of took the fun out of it to have them on the layout. And in every one of those situations but one, I sold that model eventually and got back to just strictly what was on the railroad during that month. So that's
so also operating your engine roster is also a very small roster because you're keeping it true to prototype of using the interstate, what they use. So you're saving money.
yeah.
You're limiting, what was used. So you're not having like, a UP come in or a B&O from or would not, well, B&O wouldn't be for that time, but you wouldn't have Conrail sailing through your layout or anything like that, or an engine that you would not have wanting if it didn't operate itself on the Iowa.
Right. Yeah. It's for me that's just that helps me. Having those parameters helps me to keep from being like more of a collector. I found that if I start sort of kicking down the walls and just doing whatever I feel like, I very quickly get into collector mode. And whereas if I stay focused on the prototype and strictly what ran on the prototype, I'm much more inclined to build. I want to I'm down to having built all but one, aside from the newer power that came on, that it was a lot of very similar looking GP38-2s and SD38-2s. All the older stuff that was there prior to that. I have one left to build of the entire roster, and so that's been fun for me to kind of stay on that path and keeps me honest.
What? Let me see. I'm trying to say what kind. Tim Holly wants to know what kind of card floating system do you use?
This kind of goes to that prototype conscience thing again. I looked at JMRI, looked at a few other things, but because I had this full roster of all the cars that moved on the Iowa Interstate, I felt like it was really important to to model those percentages as well as the individual cars. I wanted, if a particular move accounted for 30% of all the cars over that month, I wanted to have the car forwarding system basically generate those cars at that same ratio. And I never could find anything that met those needs. And I eventually started looking at Microsoft Access, and with the help of Dave Hussman and a few other Access pros out there, developed over the course of the initial development took about 6 months to create a car forwarding system that that took into account all those probabilities and all the ratios of one car to another, and so I built a database of all those cars, of the models I built based on those cars, and so as close as we could get, I've tried to maintain those.
Maintain it. Yeah. Do you find that to be a lot more interesting and engaging as you operate?
I really do. When I first started out, something that kind of drove me nuts early on was that I didn't want to make decisions that a particular car ran or didn't run. I wanted the system to kind of tell me, so that I had to play the part of on the Iowa Interstate. It's the train masters that make like power decisions and have to look at the inbound traffic and look at what customers are going to be releasing and determine their power needs accordingly. And so I build all that into this system. I call it Rail Quick, just because it allows me to more quickly generate operating session paperwork. But yeah, that's kind of where all that came from.
I have a question from IMRR.com, Eric Hall. He wanted to know, did you say that you'd have two-man crews or two one-man crews? If so, why two-man crews versus a one-man crew?
I have two-man crews. One on the road job, an engineer and conductor on the road job, and an engineer and conductor on the yard job. I guess for me, I like to be able to put my operators into the mindset of their prototype counterparts, and so the engineer is thinking just strictly about things that the engineer would be responsible for, and same with the conductor, that they're not having to do double duty, and I found that when I'm operating in sessions where I've got a counterpart doing that work with me, it's just fun. It's really enjoyable to have that interaction, kind of problem solve together, and
also you develop a rhythm too as a working crew.
Oh yeah, and it's been especially fun when you see prototype guys come in here, and watching the way they work and watching the way they problem solve is you can see the experience being applied, and there's so much to learn from seeing go to work on the layout. Yeah. It's amazing how short the sessions can be when prototype guys are here and are thinking about how they would do this on the job, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I have there's a retired engineer that comes. He used to work for Conrail, and he doesn't come a lot. He lives in Jersey, but when he does come, I'm telling you, he absolutely is a master.
Yeah.
So I just love watching him, because he's the only thing he says, man, I wish your trains would slide so we could do a cut on the fly, he says. So I'm like, no, yeah, we don't want to do cuts on the fly, just let's he says, yeah, that would be interesting to do, and stuff. So Stefan, our friend from Germany, he has a question. He says, is it difficult to mix codes 83 and 55? I can imagine there are small steps where they connect.
They what I typically will do is solder a rail joiner to the 83 and then bend kind of a vertical transition into it, and then slide the 55 in until the rail heads are even, and then file the joint.
Okay.
It's actually much easier than what I expected. So.
Yeah, yeah. And Joe, we're getting a lot of. I want to know uh, what your YouTube channel is.
It is IAIS fan. I wish I had more to offer there. Unfortunately, I haven't been a regular YouTube contributor, and when I do throw something out there, the quality is pretty sketchy. But typically it's more of just kind of sharing experiences, and like when I converted everything to Loke Sound, I put some videos out to kind of talk about what I learned from that. Did the same thing when I converted to proto throttles to kind of discuss the experience there, and it's been a lot of fun. I think I've learned as much as I've ever provided anyone else. So.
Okay. Scott Thornton, he says prototype modeling is a serious disease.
That's for sure.
I know because I am seriously infected. WR Fremo 2006, greetings from Akron, Ohio. Hello. Michael Lambertini, do you get into weathering your rolling stock?
I do. I can't say I've been as productive at that as I should have been, but my stated goal for the last couple of years has been to start weathering rolling stock and start building more structures. And I was probably more successful at that the prior year. I knocked out. I think I'm up to like I want to say like 20% of the roster is weathered now, which is pretty bad. I should have been doing it as I went along, but I was too impatient, wanted to get things in, starting getting to the point where I could operate and so on. But I kind of like to just sit down and uh, uh, get into that weathering mode and just knock a bunch of them out uh, at one time. I found that hand pastels have probably made the biggest difference for me as far as the speed of weathering and being happy with the quality. I typically now I think I can, unless I'm doing something that has a lot of rust or some unique weathering patterns to it or something. If it's just like a typical fade job with some road grime on the trucks and so on, um, uh, I'd say I'm probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 minutes per car. So.
Okay. You said that you use pan pastel?
Yeah.
Oh, just so that you know, the only is Montgomery, Monroe models, and Bragdon powders, as per Ralph Franzetti, aka the Mudfather. Pan
I,
pastel, no good.
I will take note of that. So.
Okay. Minnesota E&E Railroad. He wants to know, how often are you in your train room?
I'd say 2 or 3 times a week. I work from home. I worked from home even before COVID, and since about 2008. And when that started, I thought that that would become my regular lunch thing, as I'd come down and operate for a little bit. And unfortunately, that's never really played out. But uh, I, uh, I try to get down and operate a couple times a week. It probably doesn't happen all that often, but that's kind of a goal.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Before we go on, just to give you a heads up, we got Cross Anchors Railroad, and what is it? The Minnesota E&E Railroad. Just want to let you guys know out there in Model Railroading live channel that Model Eric from E&E Railroad will be on September 30th, and Mike and Brian from Cross Anchor Railroad will be on in October, I believe the 7th of October. So they'll be around and we'll be having them on. So put that on your calendar. Tommy K, he wants to know, can you talk about your locomotive speed table?
Oh yeah, that's another kind of favorite topic of mine. I started out setting the speed to what I thought was the prototype speed limits on the line. Well, let me back up a step. I started off when I first started operating sessions. I didn't set a maximum speed. It was just whatever the default was, and I found that every once in a while in operating sessions, I'd have people who kind of took advantage of that, and you'd see guys kind of racing around the layout, and that prototype conscience at work again. I couldn't help but spoil that fun. So I got in and started setting a maximum speed on all my locomotives. And after I had that set for a little while, I eventually downloaded. I forget the name of the app now, but there's an app for iPhone that allows you to measure the locomotive speed just based on the time it takes it to move 12 inches or something. And I was really surprised that my guesses at what I thought looked accurate were nowhere
Right.
accurate. I think I actually had them set slower than the prototype speed limits, which is kind of surprising. You typically think of going the other way, but so I adjusted up to that speed limit and thought, that just looks crazy fast at that point. When you look at even a line like this that has a prototype speed limit of 25 miles an hour, going around 30-inch radius curves, it looks like you're running, Lionel or something. It's just to my eye, it just looked way too fast, and so I started experimenting and eventually got down to where I set the road speed limit to 12 miles an hour, and the yard, which would typically have, you'd be restricted speed on the prototype, but I think it maxes out at supposed to be 10 miles an hour. Set the yard to, and that to me, those speeds to me actually look. It's like they look like a scaled down version of an accurate speed in those cases, and kind of a funny story. It made me feel good. I had a prototype engineer here one time right after I made these adjustments. He was running a road train and had it in notch 8 and maxed out on the speed, and I asked him how fast he thought he was going, and I forget what his answer was. I think he said like 35 or 40, and he was going 12 at the time. So
How much was he going?
he was going 12 miles an hour at the time. So it's interesting the way our brains kind of scale speed as well when you're looking at something passing through a model scene. The other part of the speed table thing with the proto throttle, I have mine configured so that notches 1 through 5 adjust the speed. Basically you max out, you reach your maximum speed at notch 5, so that if you're on road or yard job, you can essentially kind of play those upper notches a little bit the way you would with Loc Sound's drive hold feature, only without having to use drive hold. You can if you're on a road job and you're coming up on a on a hill and you want to make it sound like you're really working hard, you can notch up from 5 to 8, and your train speed will stay constant, but the prime mover sound will notch up accordingly. So I've really enjoyed having it set up like that, and it seems to kind of keep my head in the prototype world, and I think it's Tony Custer who had shared the term model railroad thoughts. He talks about doing things on the layout that sort of take you out of the prototype world and throw you back into model railroad thoughts, and so one of those for me was that adjustment to the speed table,
Right.
so that I'm not having to think about drive hold, about setting or releasing that to vary the prime mover sounds quite as much.
Do you also have? We talked the other day prior to the show, the pre-show thing, and we mentioned that you actually have locks on your switchers and derailleurs.
Yeah. I started off being very much in the Lance Mindheim camp of all those operational details, and James McNabb is another one who was really influential for me, and encouraging me in that direction. I saw James working with those for a while, and I was on board with the working derails. I could see that being enjoyable to kind of have that additional step when you're switching an industry or something.
Right.
The locks took me longer. The locks I really thought would be too burdensome. I thought it'd be too much of a hassle if I'm operating by myself and I've got a proto throttle and an uncoupling pick and paperwork. I thought having a key to unlock a lock was just going to be over the top, and I eventually decided to try it and found a method that I could use on my switch mechanism that would allow me to lock it, and once I did, I was blown away. I wish I'd done it long ago. I ended up modifying my uncoupling picks. I used micromark uncoupling picks, and I drilled a hole through the end and put a little key ring on the end, so I can have a little key for a luggage padlock on the end of my uncoupling pick. So I don't need one more thing. Don't have to one more thing, and so yeah, it's I've really enjoyed it a lot. And I can attest to the fact that the derails do their job. I tend to I'm probably more guilty than any of my operators in forgetting that they're there, which is embarrassing. But I'll come down here and fire up the layout. It doesn't matter that I've got the derails called out on the track charts that are on the fascia and little signs that are on the fascia and
line that says derail and
yeah,
it doesn't matter, right?
Smacking me in the head to look out for the derail, dummy. But it's always that sickening feeling of hearing the equipment hit the ground that reminds me that they are kind of hard to see.
They're working.
So
Randall Ellis wants to know, what's the largest locomotive you operate on your layout, and do you have foreign power? Well, you can, yeah.
Yeah, the UP UP power is really common on the layout, in part because they had those trackage rights I mentioned earlier on continued in 2005, and so there was a derailment on May 5th of that year that led to 4 UP detours, and so that we had those, and then also the UP shares the Iowa Interstate's intermodal ramp in Council Bluffs. So every day the Iowa Interstate will go across town to the UP and pull a cut of intermodal back to the ramp, and then every evening the UP back then would send road power across town, and the Iowa Interstate crews would build that outbound UP big train, and then take it over to the UP, and then a UP crew would jump on, and Iowa Interstate crew would leave it with them, and they'd head out. So yeah, UP yellow is everywhere here. And the biggest power on the layout is one of those detours had an SD 9043 AC, which is a bit of a monster.
Yeah, it is.
In terms of my layout anyway, and also one of the manifest trains had an SD90 leading, so got one of those. It kind of does double duty.
Well, Randall Ellis continues by saying, he says, I just turned the throttle up and let them run. Not too fast. I don't really want them wrecking. John Arthur says, an SQL database. Brilliant. Lego Studio 34. I much prefer low-speed operations. It makes me feel a lot longer. My old DM and E layout was 10 miles per hour the whole way around. Like the I thought it was great. WR Free Mode 2006 wants to know, after you set your locomotive speed table, do you get any pushback from your operators?
I didn't. I think the only I honestly I expected there to be objections at first, and the only feedback I ever got was positive. So either they're just being super gracious to me, or they truly did enjoy it. But I would agree with the comment earlier about it making your layout seem bigger. When before I set those speed restrictions, I could crank a train up if I was restaging or something and I wanted to just do it quickly and run something across the layout really quickly. I could do that, but after doing this, you're talking, you've got some distance to cover, and you're not doing it very quickly, and so it definitely makes the layout seem much larger. I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Cross Anchors Railroads says, I like a variety of speeds from yards to high-speed passenger trains. WR Free Mode 2006 is Tom Moran. Hey, Tim Moran, how are you?
Oh, hey, Tim.
Yeah. Randall Ellis, I like the full throttle feature on the Scale Trains locomotives. Lets you cheat the system, so to speak. Let's see, John, that's what good evening. Possum Bayou is in the house. Hey, Possum. Randall Ellis, yep. The ST90OM Max are very large locomotives. We actually have their reincarnation, the ST70 ACUs, visiting the Theta sub from time to time.
Nice.
So, would it be possible for you to take your laptop and kind of peruse the layout? Is that possible? Even though it might be.
We can sure do that if it won't make people dizzy.
Well, everybody's taking their Dramamine, so I think they're all good.
We'll do a little tour here. Let me disconnect.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
We'll start. We'll go around to staging, I guess, for starters. Here's I mentioned
I see what you mean about the board there being up enough where it blocks your view of the yard, but still gives you the appearance of a large layout.
Yeah, for me that was really beneficial in just uh, blocking that view of staging and that operators who were back in the main layout room, a train that was supposed to be hours away, they weren't seeing it sitting here in a 10-track yard with a bunch of other trains that are waiting. So I thought it kind of helped to give the layout a bit more of a the quiet rural feel without having this giant visible yard spoiling that.
Cool.
So this is kind of um, this is and there's that ST90 we were talking about. Um, this is staging. We've got a single shared yard that feeds both ends of the railroad. As we come around the corner here, this is Atlantic, Iowa. This is the far east end of the layout.
Yeah, because he's away from the computer. This is that what we're seeing there is the Atlantic portion of the yard.
Sorry, you hear me okay now?
Well, you're away from the front of the thing, so we can't hear you that well.
How's that? Is that any better?
Yeah, we can hear you a little bit better.
Okay. So this is the Atlantic yard. Kind of a small facility that was just it was home to maintenance wave crews. As you can see, the three foreground tracks in the yard are pretty well overgrown and used pretty much exclusively for maintenance purposes. And then you've got kind of the little maintenance base here with tie plates and so on laying around, and then the local yard office. Moving around the corner from Atlantic, we come to the Atlantic Spur, which is just a little former branch line that diverged from the main at that point. Here are a couple of those derail signs that I told you that I'm always missing. I kind of patterned those after the prototype signs that I don't know if you can see them in this. Back here are those two
Oh, the
derails.
derailleur.
And again, the steel derail signs that should also get my attention, but usually don't. And Walnut Creek.
Night Seaboard Central. That's interesting with the backdrop going continuous with the river.
I've kind of changed my technique. This was the first bridge that I ever built, and I kind of changed my technique after this one so that those that I've done since this time, when rather than having the backdrop waterway continue quite high up in the scene, I've started. I've started having the trees on either side of these kind of situations block the view to where the horizon kind of drops down in these kinds of scenes. I'll show you an example of it later on. For me, the smaller photo in that scene was a little bit distracting. It kind of seemed like it was
climbing the wall, I guess. And
Joe, we're losing you
so
on the audio. If
sorry, can
you,
you hear me? Okay?
nah, we're losing you on the audio. Maybe if you came back to, you know,
Is that any better?
yeah, that sounds better.
Okay. And this, as we move around the corner here, this is Hancock, Iowa. The green elevator there, and then in the background is what they call Hillis siding. And then on the west end of Hancock here, you would have these elevator tracks that drop down from the main line at what they called Hancock Junction. Then moving on west is the East Ishwaubenon River. This is one of those examples where I changed the way that I was doing my backdrop photos. As you can see in this one, the trees kind of block the fact that the horizon on the backdrop dips down as you approach the waterway, so that you don't have that stream kind of climbing the backdrop. And continuing around the corner is eventually the town of McClellan, Iowa. There's just the remains of an elevator crew there that elevator no longer got rail service. The spur kind of remained for maintenance and weight purposes.
Very nice. That's one. You know, it's big, but it's compact.
It
And that's where it originated from, right? Yeah, because that's the bridge over your shoulder.
yeah, and that's this is what they called high bridge. Not very high by other standards, but by Iowa standards, maybe so.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming around the corner, this is what Iowa Interstate calls the Ann Bridge. That's where they cross over the ENSF former Milwaukee Road line. It is now again a branch line, the Beard branch. And then entering Council Bluffs, Harry Langdon Boulevard, and then kind of moving around into Upstart. We see some of the pillars, part of the intermodal ramp here. The table. One of the last prototype tables ever built, from what I understand, was built in 1953, I think, as as part of this what was then new yard for the Rock Island. And then this is the Upstart House, where during this time frame, that was the primary maintenance facility for the Iowa Interstate. It's shortly, it was 2012, so about 7 years after my era, those maintenance facilities moved over to Atlanta, Iowa, and this one is still around for for car repair work and things of that nature.
You're dropping out again, Joe.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming in choppy. You could, we got the overall thing. If you want to sit it back down, so because I got a few questions for you.
All right.
It's a beautiful layout, I will tell you that.
Oh, thank you, sir.
It is.
Very kind.
Tommy K wants to know. He wants to know, Joe, what do you like best of your layout? What's the best thing about your layout you like?
Boy, good question. I I would say Atlantic Iowa is has always been an area that really fascinated me. It's not a very busy place at all, but it's just one of those places that's kind of model railroad sized, and I think that was one of the areas I most enjoyed recreating. There's kind of a distinctive crossover at the west end of town. Um, the yard itself just had a lot of personality with the storage of the maintenance away cars and things like that. It kind of turned into its own industry in a way that. But I'd say that's pretty near the top of the list for me.
I have a twofold question here from Lego Studios 34, and I'll combine it with Randall Ellis's. Lego Studios 34 wants to know how many cars are in a usual train makeup on your layout. And Randall Ellis wants to know what's the longest train you ever ran on the layout.
I'd say car count usually runs between like 16 and 23, 24. Longest I can remember that the system generated was like 27.
27. That's not bad.
It
Tom O'Connell has taken the cat out of the bag. He says, "How are you going to move all those signature scenes when you move?"
Oh, yeah, he's
Some of you guys out there, Joe just told me tonight before we went on air that his house is being sold and he will be moving after 25 years of being in this home with this layout. So there's a definite move. So
yeah, it's looking that way anyway. We weren't planning on a move for another like 6 or 7 years, and my wife had always been talking about downsizing, and we happened to get a letter kind of out of the blue the other day from someone who, I think the market is so much in favor of sellers right now that buyers have actually taken to mailing letters to people who might be interested in selling, and we heard from someone, and they actually made us an offer Monday without even seeing the house inside. But we I'm still in the planning stages of exactly how I'm going to pull this off. Mr. Klamoski earlier, we were trading emails on this topic, and I think he got me thinking in a different direction. That my original plan was, even though the layout was never designed to be moved, I was going to make it happen. I was going to move everything, and I the more Tom and I talked and kind of started talking about like what my favorite parts of operations are. I definitely lean toward. I like yard operations, but I'd say probably my most favorite is the rural, like small yards like we have at Atlantic, and elevator operations, elevator switching, and so on. I find that really interesting. I'm a big covered hopper nut, so the plan now is most likely to try to not try. I'm going to make this happen. I, as they said in Apollo 13, failure is not an option here. So Atlantic is going to go with us, one way or another, and I'm going to try to take Hancock and Hillis, that scene that we saw just to the west there, hoping that will work out as well. And then the idea is to essentially start modeling the next three towns east of Atlantic that all have grain elevators. A couple of them being real small elevators. One at Adair being one of the largest on the railroad, and so definitely going for more of a focus on the rural switching aspect, more laid back type of operations, and just doing that. Having operating sessions that focus primarily on the local that was based out of Atlanta.
Well, yeah. Well, Tim Moran says I'd recommend the Atlanta be high on the salvage list. Tim, and a few others have said the same thing. Scott Thornton, go for the Rock Island next, Joe.
Scott's a troublemaker. That has entered my mind as well. I've thought about backdating, building exactly what we just talked about, but backdating to Rock Island times. But I've got too many of my babies out there. Those Iowa Interstate locomotives that took, in some cases, 2 or 3 months to build, and I don't know if I'd have the heart to do away with them or see them depart just yet. So.
I hear that. Joe, I want to thank you so very, very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and family life and everything. I know when we had our tech tune-up, it was your daughter's birthday, and
my pleasure
to join us for that. So, but thank you so much for being part of Who's Big Bill Talking To. And we're definitely going to be in touch with you to find out how your move is coming, and hopefully get a bigger basement, squared off a little bit more, and get that layout of your dreams.
Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this a lot, and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it was fun. Just to give you guys a heads up, this Saturday night at 9 p.m., September 19th, we're going to have Model Railroading Live is going to present small layouts with big opportunities with Tommy K, my man, and John Farrington, John 2618. They're going to be talking in regards to show number 2 is coming up. Trying to get the paperwork here, is designing a small layout. We're going to be doing stuff with Tommy and John. So I would tell you guys, put it on your calendar this Saturday night, September 19th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then back on Thursday, September 24th, we're going to have Johnny's Train Talk Show. That's where you, the audience, can participate just as we are doing right here, right now, and be a part of the show. And also be reminded, September 30th, we're going to have Eric from the E&E Railroad. It's a father-son end scale and also a garden railroad that they're working on. And we're going to be talking to them. Well, not so much Elon. He's a little, I think he's about, 4. I'm not sure, Eric, if I got that wrong, but, but he's a young guy. He'll be in bed by then, but we'll be talking. Here comes Joe again. Sorry, Joe. Okay, so we'll wrap this up quick. What's the other thing? Oh, just want to apologize to Sir Rod Stewart again. I'm sorry, Rod. Trying to get it right, Joe. This became so interesting, and so we got so involved. Rod Stewart, we are so sorry. I had you on hold there for a while, and I saw you in. Maybe we're going to try next time. Okay, don't sweat it. Don't get upset with me. So thank you very much, community, for watching and tuning in to the Who's Big Bill Talking To. We'll see you guys soon. You be well, you be safe, but most of all, you be blessed out there, okay? Take care. God bless, and we'll see you on the radio.
Take care, everyone.
And thank you, John, very much for your great work behind the scenes.